I am conscious that for those who have suffered, no sentence could ever be long enough. Whilst I understand that sentiment, I cannot, of course, arrive at my sentences on that basis. Of the sentences I am going to pass, the defendant would presently serve 1/2 before being released on parole licence. There are proposals to reduce this to 1/3, but their implementation has been paused. If, during the currency of the licence, he commits another offence or does not comply with the conditions of the licence, he will be returned to custody. The law is that the length of a sentence is not to be influenced by the proportion of it that the defendant will serve. See Round and Dunn, 2009, EWCA Crim 2667. At paragraph 44, Lord Justice Hughes said, quote, "The general principle that early release, licence, and their various ramifications should be left out of account upon sentencing is a matter of principle of some importance." That statement was approved by the Lord Chief Justice in Attorney General's reference number 27 of 2013, 2014, EWCA Crim 334. The position is therefore that judges determine the length of sentences, Parliament decides what proportion a defendant must serve. These offences were committed in the course of the defendant's work as a director of the legacy company. The defendant behaved dishonestly almost from the outset and for many years. He used the company to put his dishonest plans into effect. He kept almost no records. He abused his role as a director. I disqualify him from acting as a director for a period of 14 years from today, pursuant to sections 1 and 2 of the Company Directors Disqualification Act 1986. The sentencing guidelines say that periods of 6 to 10 years should apply to serious cases. This is a very serious case, and the defendant would be in custody for all or much of a 6 to 10 year period, in which case the disqualification would not bite at all. I'm turning now to the offences which I shall deal with as one group. With 25% credit for plea, the sentence on each of counts 31 to 60 and 63 to 66 is one of 5 years and 3 months imprisonment. With 25% credit for plea, the sentence on count 62 is one of 6 years imprisonment. All those sentences will run concurrently with each other. I shall take account of this offending as part of the sentence for counts 1 to 30 because there is a degree of overlap. Counts 1 to 30 are the lead offences for this section of offending and must obviously reflect the extra punishment for preventing the cremations. After a trial, and taking account of such very limited personal mitigation as there is, the sentence on each of counts 1 to 30 would be a sentence of 19 years imprisonment. That must be reduced by 20% to take account of the pleas of guilty. The result, rounded down by 2 months or so, is a sentence of 15 years imprisonment on each of counts 1 to 30. Those sentences will run concurrently with each other and with the sentences on counts 31 to 60, 62, and 63 to 66. Count 61, the fraudulent trading, represents separate and distinct offending. With credit for plea and allowing for totality, the sentence on count 61 is one of 4 years imprisonment to run consecutively to the sentences on counts 1 to 30. Making the same allowances, there will then be a consecutive sentence of 12 months imprisonment on count 67, so consecutive to the sentence on count 61. Mr. Bush, will you stand?
Finally, Mr Bush has been sent to prison. No matter how many years, it will be never long enough for us. Many thanks to the police and the court for their considerable time, effort and care they have dedicated to this most challenging case. Thank you also to Mr Pickering and Mr Emerson of Evergreen Funeral Directors. They acted on their moral and professional obligation without delay and when no one else did. As the sentencing week concludes, we have had many moving victim personal statements from the families affected. These testimonies serve as a stark reminder of the heinous and egregious acts committed by a funeral director who acted with complete impunity for far too long. Mr Bush did not make a mistake. His acts were deliberate. His own barrister said, "The breach of trust is obvious and gross and tainted the memory of every person." It underscores a funeral industry that is currently in desperate need of strict regulation. We all deserve dignity in death, and this was totally denied to our loved ones. Deep scars remain due to the terrible violations committed against our loved ones. It is agonising to recall a baby denied a proper cremation and left in a paper bag on the floor for nearly 2 years. Equally heartbreaking are many adults denied a dignified resting place, left to decompose on shelves to a point where DNA and dental record testing was necessary for identification. Alongside this profound disrespect, families were stripped of their life savings through fraud, and charities were robbed of donations meant to honour the deceased, our deceased. We now have closure from the court proceedings, but we remind our local MPs that a public inquiry should now be established because he had accumulated with Hull City Council a debt over £50,000. Why? How? The cremation of our loved ones in other cities, unbeknown to the deceased and to the deceased family. Why? The lack of transparency surrounding payments made by the DWP to pay legacy for funerals. Also, the Registrar's Office not seeking relevant paperwork known as Part C. Please sign our petition to demand the urgent introduction of statutory legislation for the funeral sector, calling an end to industry delays and the voluntary, ineffective UK funeral director codes. The current reliance on weak codes of conduct completely fails to protect vulnerable families during their time of deepest grief and vulnerability. Current arranged inspections also need to be changed to unannounced inspections. The petition urges the public to demand that the government step in and hold the funeral directors to the highest possible legal standards as soon as possible. Now it is time for us to grieve, reflect and repair. Together we have leaned on one another throughout this painful journey. That support continues.
Do the jail sentence.
I was really pleased because the judge had really looked at all the information, the case laws and everything, and it seemed like the examples were really good examples of how to process this, so I'm really pleased with that.
What are your feelings towards Robert Bush today?
I've got no feelings towards that person. None. It's not in my mind. That's it, he's gone.
So what do you think about the sentence then?
Well, 20 years is 20 years, it's a long time, isn't it? He's got plenty of time to ponder what he's done, hasn't he? So we won't be having lavish holidays all over there. Now we're walking around the courtyard thinking about what he's done for many, many years.
Jackie, you don't agree with that, do you?
No, I think he should have got longer.
Not long enough. I understand that no matter what the judge had given him, it won't be long enough for us, but still 20 years is still... If you think there's 30 bodies that was involved in this, and that's less than a year for each.
So what do you think that he should have got?
At least 30, at least 1 year for each. At least.
Can you describe the impact that this case has had? How do you feel about Robert Bush now?
I hate him, I'll always hate him. There was just pure greed why he's done it, and it's caused so much hurt and heartbreaking for everyone who was involved.
Don't take out the last bit of dignity we had of our parents and our loved ones. He destroyed it, as you've seen by the photos. There was all over every memory of all our loved ones was all over the back of that building. You can't really call it a company, can you? Because it wasn't.
In front of them mothers, you stood in front of us, you came in my living room and said how lovely my mother-in-law was because you knew her when she was alive. You even planned a funeral with her. Yeah, you did, right down to the T. You came in our living room and said how lovely she was, what hymns we were going to pick, what vicar we were going to use, all the while you were doing it, robbing everyone blind and leaving the bodies to rot. That's worse than a murderer. Worse. At least a murder and it's over. They get caught, it's done, they get thrown away. I am the daughter-in-law of Lyndon East Wheel. And I loved her massively, no matter how many arguments we had, no matter what was said. She was my mother-in-law. She treated me like a mother. She grew my son up. She was a mother to all her kids and her grandkids. And this is how she goes out. This is the end. No, it's not. Where are all the people that are culpable for this? Because it ain't just Rob on his own. Arranging one funeral is hard enough, never mind 35 plus. And he did it all on his own and everyone else didn't see it. But the police can know the minute they're going there's something wrong. Them from Evergreen can know the minute they go there's something wrong. But they can all work there and turn a blind eye, yeah, because the money was good at 3.7 million.
Good afternoon. I'm Detective Superintendent Alan Curtis from Humberside Police, and I'm the Senior Investigating Officer leading the investigation into Legacy Independent Funeral Directors. The priority throughout the investigation has always been the families and victims, and my thoughts remain with every family and every person affected by what happened at Legacy Independent Funeral Directors. Today, the largest, most complex and emotionally distressing investigation Humberside Police has ever dealt with has concluded, and Robert Bush has been sentenced to 20 years in prison. The distress and heartbreak this case has caused for families is simply unimaginable. And even after working on the case rigorously for the past 2.5 years, the sheer impact that has had on the whole community and further afield remains unprecedented. The investigation has been extraordinary in terms of complexity, scale and public impact, which has extended far beyond the evidential process. For the victims and their families, it has been a period marked by profound grief, distress and uncertainty, with many seeking answers while coming to terms with circumstances which have fundamentally affected their lives. Behind every inquiry and every item of evidence was a person who had died, a family who had lost a loved one, all of whom were seeking answers and, where possible, some measure of resolution. There is absolutely no sentence that can be given to Robert Bush that will undo the hurt that has been caused. Many families have had to relive the loss of someone they've loved, whilst others will continue to live with questions that may never be answered. My hope is that today's outcome provides some measure of resolution that Robert Bush has been held accountable for what he did. The damage he has caused is irreparable, with so many people who have suffered and continue to do so. Losing a family member or friend or a loved one that you care deeply about can be one of the most traumatic experiences anyone can go through, and Robert Bush took advantage of this. This has been an extremely significant and intricate investigation. It has required a sustained and multi-layered policing response from the moment of initial attendance through every subsequent phase of the inquiry. But what always remained at the heart was the families affected and remembering and respecting their loved ones. The wider community has been deeply affected, with public confidence challenged by the nature of the allegations and the understandable concern this has caused. In Hull, East Riding and the surrounding areas, where our communities are close-knit and people are often connected through family, friendship and long-standing local ties, it's impossible to put a number on just how many people have been affected by this case. No investigation of this size can be carried out by one team, and I'm so grateful for every police officer and member of police staff from every part of the force who has played a part in the investigation. Detectives, family liaison officers, crime scene investigators, specialist staff, call handlers, and of course our partner agencies, all of whom have worked tirelessly to reach this point. I couldn't be prouder of their professionalism, their compassion, persistence and commitment they've shown throughout. I'm proud of the way the teams have conducted themselves throughout the investigation despite the challenges that they've faced. They remain steadfast in their commitment to conducting meticulous, compassionate and professional investigation. I hope that has provided some measure of comfort to those involved and demonstrated how we will always do the right thing, no matter how difficult the circumstances. From the very beginning, the families and all those affected in the case have always remained at the heart of the investigation. Their understanding, support and contribution throughout the duration of the inquiry has been truly invaluable. And without them, we simply could not achieve the outcome today. Finally, I want to thank them all for the trust they placed in us along the way, for their patience, their courage that they've shown throughout, which has been an incredibly difficult journey. I know the stories shared of their loved ones, their strength and their resilience will stay with us all. We do what we do to try and deliver justice to people who can't get justice for themselves. Our thoughts remain with all those affected, and we will always remember the lives of those who are entrusted to legacy independent funeral directors. I will now pass over to Laura Tams, Deputy Chief Crown Prosecutor for the Crown Prosecution Service.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Laura Tams, Deputy Chief Crown Prosecutor at the CPS. Today, Robert Bush has been sentenced to 20 years imprisonment for offences connected to the operation of the legacy independent funeral director's premises here in Hull. These crimes represent some of the most serious breaches of trust. They included preventing the lawful and decent burial of loved ones, defrauding families who paid for services that were never provided, returning incorrect ashes to grieving relatives, fraudulent trading of funeral plans, and the theft of charitable donations which were made in memory of the deceased for causes that they cared about. The impact on the family and the wider community has been profound. At a time of great vulnerability, when seeking dignity and closure for their loved ones, they were instead subjected to shocking violations of trust. At the heart of this case is Robert Bush's complete disregard for the responsibility that was entrusted to him. His actions caused additional suffering to bereaved families and has significantly impacted the community here. Our thoughts remain with them all at this time. This has been a complex and challenging case. Our specialist prosecution team worked closely with Humberside Police to review extensive evidence and build a comprehensive case that reflected the scale and seriousness of Robert Bush's offending. His decision to plead guilty recognised the strength of evidence which was presented by the prosecution and investigation team. I would like to commend the work of the entire investigative team at Humberside Police for their dedication and professionalism. They've worked tirelessly to achieve justice for the victims and their families. While no sentence can undo the harm that has been caused, we hope that today's outcome provides some measure of justice for all of those who have been affected by these deplorable actions and demonstrates that those who exploit vulnerable people and abuse their trust will be held accountable for their actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Detective, is 20 years long enough? Is the investigation closed?